We were told 3 or 4 months ago that the crisis on the border was manufactured.
That's right.
There's no crisis on the border. It's all manufactured. It's all Trump trying to score cheap political points. There's no crisis. And then now you have a colleague of yours like AOC down there on the border being reported nationally. Oh, they're drinking water from toilets and it's horrific conditions and it's all Trump's fault again. And so the media loves that kind of stuff and they sing along. But when you've got 90+% of all media, and I'm talking electronic media, which includes radio and television, print media and online media, is all in this Trump derangement syndrome, it's no wonder to me the reason why they have lurched so far left, because the media is driving that. And these politicians like AOC, others, Green New Deals, let's give away the farm to non-citizens, whatever the case may be, they think that that's where the average American is because they just listen to their own rhetoric in their own bubble.
Yeah.
I think that's what's happened here.
Yeah, they're enamored with it.
Right.
They are absolutely starstruck. I've seen it. I've seen it happen on both sides, by the way. And rather than rolling up your sleeves and doing the people's business, they just get wrapped up in all the hype and political theater of Washington.
Do you serve on any committees with her?
No. I've met her. I've talked to her on the floor of the House. I mean, she's you're right.
But it's not just her. It's
the Progressive Caucus that they. There's the New Democrats and the Progressive Caucus, but they're more radicalized than ever. Obviously, Nancy Pelosi, I think, would not pursue impeachment because she's actually more shrewd than that politically, and she knows that's only going to worsen their chances at the White House prospects. So I think she's just like this recent vote for humanitarian aid. This is straightforward, okay? I mean, the Republicans want to secure the border and stop the nonsense, that the root causes of the humanitarian crisis.
Right.
Because we believe that there's a cause and effect, and we believe that those asylum policies and this business of if you bring a child, then we have to catch and release into the interior of our country, never to see them again. We know what's at the core that's drawing people here, but at the end of the day, we're Americans and our values are such that we're going to take care of the folks that we detain, especially these unaccompanied minors. I saw them firsthand. It's a sad deal, but we're perpetuating that by not doing anything about it. But but Nancy Pelosi was so caught up with her radical left members like AOC that she couldn't even take a straightforward deal. Didn't have the wall in it. Didn't have any sort of partisan initiatives that we might want to see in terms of border security. It just provided pay for ICE and Border Patrol and Defense, who are on the front lines, not just of border security now, but humanitarian services. And she was so politically tone deaf because of the noise from the left that she waited 60 days and denied 18 formal requests from the president and Republicans in the House to do something that the Senate did with an 84 vote, bipartisan, straightforward, let's make sure we take care of these folks and provide basic services. And let me tell you, I saw it firsthand. They're getting better shelter, food, health care than they've had in their lives. I brought a toothbrush back for AOC, by the way. So it's sad. I'm not going to tell you that looking at these kids, I have 3 young children. I hate it. But I know that the reason they're taking that dangerous trek from Central and South America to our country is because we've encouraged them to do that. And we have created this pull, these magnets that, that are pretty irresistible to folks who are looking for a better life. We don't know which ones are the gangs, which ones are the trafficking drugs. We know that 1/3 of the women that come over here are being sexually assaulted. We know that 100% virtually of the drugs, fentanyl, we have an opioid crisis. 300 people die a week of heroin overdoses. This is coming across the border. And the Democrats have no desire to do anything, and they're raising their hand on the political stage of this presidential election, and they're saying, you know what, I think we ought to give the Medicare for all to millions of people who are here illegally. So just turn up the magnets and the perverse incentives, and I think we ought to decriminalize it. I mean, at that point, guys, we talk about de facto open border policies. This is open border policy. So
that would destroy the country.
It will.
It's working on it right now. That's their end game.
Look at Europe. That's all you have to do. Europe's ahead of us on this, unfortunately. So was Venezuela on the democratic socialist platform that Hugo Chavez ran on. Look at the end result. It's terrible. It'll destroy the American culture. It will destroy our economy. I mean, people say Medicare for all, you know, how could that be so bad? I mean, healthcare costs are too high, and Medicare seems to be a popular program among seniors. $30 trillion. And we give the keys to the control of healthcare over to bureaucrats and politicians. What a disastrous idea. And the list goes on and on. The clown car, as they say, just keeps this never-ending stream of not just clown politicians, but clown ideas that would destroy America in more ways than we have time to talk about.
Well, it's not been without accurate prediction on this program. I've been talking about this for the last, since 2016. I mean, the shock, and I freely admit that I didn't think that Donald J. Trump would beat Hillary Clinton in 2016. In fact, the morning of the show, me and Steve Burns were sitting here the day of the election because it was on a Tuesday, right? So Steve and I were talking on Gun Talk, and I said, look, you need to go out and purchase a legacy rifle today. I said, you need to go ahead because Hillary Clinton ran on a platform of, we're going to unleash the trial attorneys on gun manufacturers.
That's right.
And so that's the end round of the Second Amendment. Right. We'll just put them out of business, that's essentially.
Right. Kind of what New York's doing with the NRA.
Pretty much,
yep.
The same
just
kind
harassment.
of stuff. Harassment, put them out of business, constant litigation, that kind of stuff. And so, but then to my surprise, and that morning at 2:30 in the morning when all the electoral votes were counted, I thought, my goodness, man, we just dodged a gigantic bullet.
Yes.
But that next day on the show, which would have been that Wednesday morning, and I had made a long list. I still have the list of all the things that President Trump, or that now President Trump, had ran on. And when I look at that list, the accomplishments are really amazing that this individual was able to get a lot of these things done. And that's been so helpful for the country. But at the same time, on that show the next day, I talked about the fact that he would push the left off the edge and how rapidly they would become so deranged with the election of President Trump that they would go so far that it would cause so much chaos that it could potentially even be the end of their party, because they're really just playing to an audience that I predict is around about 15 to 20% of the voters out there are in this very far left socialist mindset. And you see this with Joe Biden, who's trying to be this moderate, hey, I said on the last debates yesterday on the program, I said if Barack Obama himself, candidate Obama, would have been on that stage,
they'd boo him.
They would boo him off. I mean, and we thought Obama was way out there wanting to fundamentally transform America. That guy would have been booed off the stage.
That's right.
That's how far this has gotten.
You're right.
And I think that it's taken a little bit of time. Most of the voters out there are a little bit slow to come to that realization. But now we're starting to see where the average American voter, I don't care if they're Republican or Democrat, they're looking at this stuff going, oh, man, hey, look, we don't want to be Venezuela. I don't want to eat Fido because we don't have food in the grocery. I mean, seriously, it's that bad.
I know. And you're right, they can't help themselves. And I think
we're going to outleft the other guy.
We've never seen it.
It's crazy.
There's more exercised over this, and I agree with you. I think the hatred and the obsession with Trump and the media. I mean, their egos are so big they can't help themselves. They constantly want to vilify this president, and they want to make him pay. They want to make him pay.
Not only that, but
for exposing them.
But not only that, but supporters. They want to make Trump's supporters
absolutely
pay.
No.
You can't have a rational conversation anymore.
Well, listen. Anytime you say that walls are immoral, they've lost all rationality.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing to discuss the right strategy to deploy to secure the border. To say when you live and work behind walls that walls are immoral, you just go, wow, I can't negotiate with this person. There's something deeper there, and it's not a disagreement on the philosophy and policies to secure the border. It's a personal hatred. And it's not just the politics of the presidential primary on the Democrat side where they've gone off the deep end. They've also not seized the moment. And again, this saddens me as an American, but as a guy that's watching and cares a lot about the outcome of the 2020 election, including getting the House back, it's playing right into our hands with respect to the policies that they're passing, okay? The American people thought, okay, divided government. It can't be so bad. I like a little check on the president. I want a bipartisan, constructive problem solving where we get rid of the sort of extreme partisan, policy initiatives. There's been nothing but partisan ram and jam. H.R. 1, the signature premier first major legislative forum passed by the Democrat House, was the federal takeover of elections, was the weaponization of the FEC, was we will subsidize up to $1,600 every politician that's running for Congress with taxpayer monies. That's H.R. 1. It's codifying for the country what happened with the ballot harvesting and the racket that went on in California in the midterm election. That was their signature legislation. Since then, they've also passed amnesty for millions of people who are here illegally, haven't lifted a finger to stop the crisis, tried to balk for days and weeks and months on providing humanitarian aid, and they finally had to just cave because of the pressure from the moderate Democrats. They just thought, this is ridiculous.
Post today and Abilene,
Sweetwater,
doing both, or at Sweetwater and Post. What if you could check off the top three items that your constituents that come to these town halls, what are they most concerned about right now?
Number one is border insecurity.
Okay.
No question.
Border security.
They know it's a crisis. They feel it in their communities, Wade. And this is part of my message back in Washington from the states who are on the front lines like Texas. That's number one. What are we doing to help President Trump secure the border and stop this nonsense of illegal immigration? And so that's number one. I think they're concerned about the things we talked about coming out of the socialist Democrats, and it scares them, especially seniors. We have a lot of seniors, and they just think, man, our country is slipping away before their very eyes, and they're worried about their grandkids.
Yeah,
and
I am too.
I mean, they for us, it's hard to imagine that we're talking about government control over our economy and our lives.
Well, I'm concerned about it. I mean, me and you are about almost the same age, but when I look at my kids, I'm concerned for their future.
Absolutely.
I'm concerned about this mountain of debt that we're not accurately that's being misrepresented, and to pile on the debt, which, by the way, is a bipartisan deal. I mean, you got no one's really talking about the debt, but the debt load continues to climb.
We're spending
$1 billion, Congressman, every 8 hours, funding this debt. $1 billion every 8 hours is going bye-bye. That concerns me greatly.
Well,
and no adults in Washington, D.C. are talking about this.
On either side, and it's I've talked about this a lot. I was on the budget committee. We passed balanced budgets and reforms. I was on that super committee as the only freshman to reform the budget and appropriations process. I mean, I am beating that drum. I'm willing to do a whole lot of painful things that could get me unelected because you're cutting into programs that are sacrosanct.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to do that because I didn't envision me staying in Washington as a career long term. I just want to look back and say, I did some things that were real, that were meaningful, and that truly left this country better for my children. There is not a bigger threat than the one that you mentioned with respect to our debt. $22 trillion. I've stopped calling it our debt. It's $22 trillion in deferred taxes on our children. Someone's going to pay for all this stuff, for the needless expansion of federal government, and it's going to be our children. And when that happens, they'll have high unemployment instead of record low. They'll have high interest rates. They'll have high taxes. Someone's going to have to pay for this. And unfortunately, it's one of the most irresponsible things we do as a country because, as you've talked about, that sort of Washington mentality and the political cycle, let's just do what we can and what we need to do to get reelected. Forget making the tough decisions like every generation has up till now to save this union and to keep this democracy going.
Yeah.
This is the 21st century challenge. The national debt, our deficit, runaway spending, and our lack of fiscal restraint. That is our generation's World War I, World War II, Great Depression. That is our biggest challenge. The question is, will we step up? Will we make the sacrifice? Will we put our country's interest in the future for our children above our desire to be reelected? And,
I don't see it right now anyway. But it would not, would you say that is in the top 3 that you hear in the town hall?
I rarely hear about it. Rarely hear about it. I bring it up because I want to make sure that the folks I represent know, because I live with it every day. I hear the reports. I'm on Ways and Means. I was a budget committee member. I hear the reports of us going from 75% of GDP, debt to GDP, to 100%, highest recorded. We've never had a 75% debt to GDP. 75% of our entire economy is the amount of debt that we're carrying right now.
Yeah.
That in peacetime, because the times that our debt has been high has been in war. This is peacetime, and it's sort of a death spiral because in 10 years we'll pay more in interest on the debt than we will on all of national defense. And so I try to sound the alarms when I'm in these communities and I'm at these town halls because I let them know we're going to have to make some tough decisions, and I plan on making some of those tough decisions. And, in the moment, they all say, go for it. We understand. This is about dealing with the major challenge, giving our kids a fighting chance to have the land of opportunity and freedom, because there's no freedom when you have that kind of debt, personally or as a country. But I wonder how they will feel when we start cutting into their favorite programs. We'll see. I'll tell you the other issue, though, that's coming up is the China trade and the impact on agriculture.
Okay.
I was at North Gen and Dimmitt, and we spent a lot of time talking about it. And I told him the last conversation I had with the president, he had a White House picnic for families, all members of Congress, both parties. I saw Democrats there as well. And I talked to him, and he brought it up. But he wanted to talk about the farmers and how they were doing and the trade aid to get them through this tough time so that he can get to a real negotiated reset. He said he's committed to it. He said, tell your farmers that I got their back and that, if we can get to the other side of this and it's a real reciprocal, balanced, fair trade deal with China, the next generation of farmer and rancher is going to be so much better off. And I said, look, our guys have your back, man. They believe in you. They know what's happening. They've been dealing with China on cotton production, subsidized farmers in China, dumping cheap product on the market, manipulating the markets in all kinds of ways. They understand. They know what you're doing. Just give them some relief so they have a runway to give you the time to negotiate a real deal. So that obviously in agriculture country and in the most productive ag center in the country in West Texas is obviously top of mind for those guys.
Yeah, and I would think probably.
By the way, USMCA's in the mix too. So
yeah, well,
they're pulling for me getting that free steak dinner.
I'm sure they are, and I am too. Look,
I know you are.
That's
I know
one
you
steak
are.
dinner bet that I want to pay.
I know.
Normally, I don't pay those around here because I'm usually right.
And Cattle Barons pay he will.
That's right.
Pay
Cattle
he
Baron
will.
will be there, and we'll Facebook Live it. That's great. We'll do that. I hate to be right on that one, but I'm going to stick by my guns on the MCA. But real quick, oil and gas too.
Yes,
that's another big segment of your district, and oil and
Huge.
gas stuff. Again, unleashed. There was a report. I think it was April that we produced a West Texas Intermediate crude, 12.5 million barrels a day. They're pumping so much oil that we don't have pipelines coming out of Midland, Odessa. Yeah, trying to get it to the ports and get it refined, and I mean we're having some clogging of the system because we've now surpassed Saudi Arabia.
Yes,
I mean it's an astonishing turn of events with the deregulations and the things that the Trump administration has done for oil and gas. Whereas under Obama, we all know the deal there was very hostile.
Right.
Again, don't want to do oil and gas. We want to get back to more wind and solar. Nothing wrong with wind and solar, but that's not going to power this nation.
Yes.
And so anyway, I'm sure that's coming up.
Well, can I comment on that?
Yeah,
please,
real quick.
because
Sure.
we talk a lot about ag, but we are the ag and energy epicenter of this country.
No doubt.
And y'all have heard me talk often about what we contribute in rural West Texas to the rest of the country. Food security, energy independence. I can't think of anything more important than what we do to strengthen our economy and national security through the energy producers and ag producers of West Texas. But let me tell you, they are under assault because of the climate change activists who believe the world's going to end in 12 years. And they forget the part about how we've reduced carbon emissions. We've cut them in half over the last decade. Greenhouse gases are down. We lead the world in reduction of environmental contaminants. The six contaminants that are the key drivers of clean air in the Clean Air Act. This is law, not some Obama policy to go beyond it like the Clean Power Plan that was ruled unconstitutional.
Right.
This is in the law, okay? Of those six pollutants that drive cleaner air, if you can reduce them, we have reduced them 70% since 1973. Meanwhile, we grew our economy 230%. America's leading. America's leading on providing a cleaner environment, cleaner air and water for our kids. I want that. I know you want that. I don't know anybody who doesn't. But those are clear, they're measurable, they're definable, and when you start talking about the world's going to end and the Republicans are starting, and this is my concern, and being on Ways and Means, we've already had a hearing on this, but they're starting to embrace the premise and the problem as defined by the Democrats. We should embrace clean air and water. We're doing a great job. We ought to have high standards, and we ought to work in partnership to achieve those. Technology's done more than any command and control regulation has to get us there, i.e. horizontal fracking and the shale revolution with natural gas. But take that all aside, you've got folks on the Republican side, and I don't know if it's because they're afraid. I don't know if what polls are looking at, but they're embracing climate change as something that man is contributing to, that has made it sort of urgent and disastrous and catastrophic. And that premise is a dangerous one to buy into. I don't buy into it. I think we ought to monitor it. I think industrial activity is a contributing factor, but I am not about to conclude, and will not, that man is driving in this and that this isn't part of the ebb and flow of the cooling and heating of the earth. But if we go there, we will destroy the greatest economy in the world. 90% of our economy is running on conventional fuels or fossil energy. So let's embrace all the above. I'm all for renewables coming online. I think renewable and cleaner burning fuel is great. But our bread and butter that has made us the world superpower, because you're not the world superpower if you're not the lead economy in the world. and it's because we've been blessed with tremendous fossil energy. So I wanted to say that because we talk a lot about ag, but I tell you what, the energy production that's coming out of West Texas, and the president gets both. He gets both, and he is fighting to provide more freedom in the marketplace so that we can not just pump that stuff out of the ground to give our country energy independence, but to export that freedom to countries like Poland and others who've been a slave to Russia and dependence on their oil and gas. You follow me?
Oh, yeah.
So this is a game changer. Geopolitically, this is a game changer, not just as a boon for our economy and national security here at home. Wade, thanks for letting me go a little over time here.
That's fine. And you're going to be where, and how can the people in those areas?
I'm going to be in Post. We're going to go see some employers here locally, ask them how things are going, and what the pain points are. You know, it's more just keeping the federal government off the.
And you're not having any town halls in Lubbock?
Not this round.
Okay.
We had a lot of events here, so a lot of times I've got events from the time I land to the time I leave.
Sure.
Like we celebrated the cotton classification
yesterday.
Operations.
Big deal, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's a big deal. It's just another validation that we lead,
yeah,
and that USDA sees our university and our part of the country as the leaders in cotton production, cotton education, research, all of it. But yeah, then we'll go to Sweetwater. We go to a coffee shop, I think, tomorrow morning there, and then we'll do other things in Sweetwater, but that's where the town hall will be. And then out to Graham, which is the furthest easternmost part of the district in Young County. Graham's a great little town.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll obviously be back in August. We'll have the whole month of August to work throughout the district, and I look forward to being on your show in person more often in that month. And maybe I won't cut into Steve's time because what he has to say is very important.
It's been a pleasure having you here today.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'll come back in to see you at your shop and right there on 34th Street. We live in Tech Terrace, so we're not far. We could actually walk.
Awesome.
Good to see you, Steve. God
Thanks
bless. Go West Texas.
Okay.
Thanks, Wade.
We'll take a break. Be right back.